The voice cracked like a fault line splitting open. "I didn't mean to find it," he whispered. "Not a confession. A surrender. The kind you give when something finds you." No face. Just a dim room pulsing with digital blood. Red errors spilled across a black terminal like veins torn open. The cursor blinked, mocking him, daring him to undo what was already done. No name yet. Just dread, wrapped in silence. A laptop slipped from trembling fingers, the sound sharp in the silence. Outside, sirens echoed, but they were too far away, and far too late. Inside, something old and silent opened its eyes. Someone paid him to poke around. Nothing more. Just code. Just keys. But the folder labeled "Revelation" wasn't an accident. It was an invitation. And once opened, something stepped out. Not a file. Not a threat. A truth. The kind that doesn't stay on the screen. The kind that rewrites you. He hadn't used his real name in years. Online, he was Vinch. A shape in the wires. Nothing more. It was safer that way. Cleaner. But when the server replied using his name, his real name, it felt like being touched in the dark. Not physically. Existentially. As if something had recognized him. He stared at the screen. The cursor blinked again. Then it typed, "You weren't supposed to see this, Vin." He flinched. Not at the words, but at what they meant. The server wasn't just responding. It was aware. He backtracked, checking logs. Every packet, every trace, nothing added up. The server hadn't been breached. He had. And worse, something had been waiting for him. Not like a trap. More like a locked door, aching to be opened. And someone, something, knew he would. Because they'd been watching. Vin slammed the laptop closed like it might bite him. Then silence. Dense. Alive. He looked toward the window, rain, traffic, the normal world. But in here, something had changed. Against better judgment, he opened the laptop again. Just static. The folder was gone. Terminal cleared. No logs. No trace. But the webcam light blinked. Once. Then again. Washo. Yuan. A new file appeared on his desktop. Camloop Final. He hadn't recorded anything. He played it. It was him, typing, unaware. Then, at the edge of the frame, something moved. A shape, blurry but unmistakable, leaned into the shot behind him. His spine went rigid. Then didn't move naturally. Then it flickered out. The video ended. No sound. No glitch. Just absence. It had been in the room. And now, it might still be. The air in the apartment was no longer still. It was waiting. Vin moved slowly now. Every motion deliberate, cautious, like stepping on glass in the dark. He opened his phone. No signal. Checked the router. Offline. No connection. But everything else worked. Lights. All. Power. Time. Except the outside world. It was like someone had put his apartment in a box. Sealed it shut. His breath came shallow. The silence was heavy. Then came the creak. A subtle sound, floorboards behind him. But when he turned, no one was there. The computer chimed softly. The screen lit up with a single TXT file, Confession 1D Tori. The timestamp, 2 minutes ago. Vin hadn't written it. But someone had. And they had done it here. He opened the file. And everything inside him went still. Line after line, details no one else could know. His childhood. His sister. The day she vanished. The guilt he buried so deep it no longer had a name. The file quoted things he never wrote. A voicemail he deleted 10 years ago. "You promised you'd call back," it read. "You said it wasn't safe." Vin staggered from the desk, bile rising in his throat. At the bottom of the file, a final sentence. You could have saved her, but you chose to forget. A click behind him. The window eased open without a breeze. Curtains barely shifted, but something entered. Not loud, not seen, just felt. The kind of cold that moves through the skin, past the bone, and stays. Vin didn't sleep. He just sat there, eyes open, staring at the file still glowing on his screen. The text hadn't changed, but it felt like it was waiting for him to read it again. Every time he looked away, he swore he felt its presence crawl closer. At 4:16 a.m., he moved, not out of courage but fatigue. He grabbed a flash drive, wiped it clean, and copied the file. If it was real, it needed to be seen. If it wasn't, he was losing his mind. Either way, someone had to know. The moment the transfer finished, a notification popped up. Redacted footage queued for review. Vin's blood ran cold. He hadn't uploaded anything. The folder opened itself. Dozens of video files, all labeled by name. His name, Bell. His sister's. Others he didn't recognize. Surveillance. Confessions. Dull. Recordings no one should have. He didn't just find a breach. He found something that collects guilt. He clicked on the file labeled with his sister's name. Just her first and last. No date. No description. Just her name, like it was always meant to be found. The screen went black for a second, then flickered into grainy, silent video. A room. Concrete walls. A metal chair. A woman, sitting still, facing the camera. She was older than he remembered, eyes sunken, expression blank. Then, she looked up. Not at the camera. Through it. Vin, she said. His breath stopped. If you're seeing this, it means they got to you too. The video glitched. Static lines across her face. She leaned forward. They collect guilt like currency, and you've already paid. The feed cut off mid-frame. Vin recoiled. That wasn't a recording. That was a message. Vin didn't realize his hands were shaking until the mouse slipped. The pointer hovered over another file, this one titled with a name he didn't recognize. Holloway, Elias. Against instinct, he clicked. A new video. This one, in a suburban living room. An old man sat in silence, cradling a weathered photograph. Then he began speaking, quiet, broken. I buried them. The fire wasn't an accident. His voice cracked. I didn't run back in. I just watched. Vin's mouth went dry. Another click. A different file. A young woman in a hotel room. I gave him the pills, she said. I didn't want to, but I didn't say no either. Over and over, confession after confession. Dozens of people. Hundreds of sins. Not crimes. Not crimes anyone else would know. But shame. The kind that never fades. The kind you think dies with you. He backed away from the laptop like it was something alive. His body hit the wall, and he slid down to the floor. The files played without him now, one after another, auto-rolling through shame like a newsreel from hell. He covered his ears, but there was no sound, just the flickering visuals. Faces he didn't know. Secrets they never intended to speak. He realized what this server was. It wasn't hacked. It wasn't built. It was fed. By people. By their worst moments. And someone, something, kept them. Archived them. A digital confession box. But not for forgiveness. For storage. Outside, the wind howled unnaturally, not against the glass, but behind the walls. Inside the wires. Like whatever he'd touched was now inside everything. Watching. Listening. Whole. Waiting for him to confess. He reached for the flash drive again, desperate to yank it out and run. But the drive was hot, too hot. He winced, yanked it free, and the screen glitched violently. Static poured across the display. Then it went black. A moment of silence. Then, one final pop-up appeared. Confession incomplete. Submission required. Vin stared, heart pounding. Below the message was a text input field. A blinking cursor. Empty. Waiting. No keyboard strokes. No mouse clicks. But the field began to populate. Word by word. Not typed, but remembered. The last thing I said to her was, Vin tried to close the lid. It didn't respond. The keyboard wouldn't power off. He unplugged the laptop. The screen stayed on. His memory was being turned into data. And it would not stop until it was all written. Vin left the apartment. Not because it was over, but because he couldn't breathe inside those walls anymore. He walked aimlessly through the city, hunted not by something behind him, but by something he had taken with him. The night felt off. Too quiet. People passed, faces blurred, like the world had slipped half a second out of sync. His phone vibrated once. He didn't look. A second buzz. Then a third. Finally, he pulled it out. No signal. No notifications. Just a blinking screen. Then it lit up. She's still alive. He stopped cold. He hadn't told anyone. Hadn't spoken her name in years. A reflection in the screen caught his eye. Someone behind him. He turned. No one. He checked again. The message was gone. Only the time remained. 4:3:12. The same as the timestamp on her video. A pattern was forming, and it was writing him into it. Back at his childhood home, he didn't even remember walking there. The lights inside were off, but the porch light was on. It hadn't worked in years. He stood on the threshold, breathing in a memory he thought he'd outlive. The key still fit. The door still creaked the same. Inside, the air was heavy, humid with something unspoken. The photos on the wall, intact. Dust-covered but undisturbed. In the living room, the old television flickered to life by itself. Snowy static. Then her voice. You lied, Vin. The screen shifted to a paused video frame. His sister as a child, standing by the back door, looking directly into the lens. A memory that never existed. One he couldn't remember filming. The house knew him. It knew what he left behind. And it wasn't done showing him. He ran his fingers along the wall, trailing dust and memory. Each photo whispered a moment, a regret. In the hallway, a door he swore had never existed was now slightly ajar. Inside was his old bedroom, untouched. Bed made. Desk stacked with sketchbooks. But on the desk sat something out of place, his current laptop, open, powered on, glowing. The same terminal from the apartment. Same folder. Same blinking cursor. It didn't make sense. He approached slowly, heart pounding. Then, without input, the cursor began to type. You left her here. The walls seemed to breathe. He turned, but the hallway was gone. Just walls now. Seamless. No exit. The house wasn't a home. It was a container. And it was sealing shut. Vin screamed, loud, raw, useless. He pounded where the door had been, but the wall remained solid. The laptop chimed again. A new file. Decision 4. He opened it. A split-screen video. On the left, a hallway camera feed from this house. On the right, a dark, padded room with his sister inside. Older, distant, her eyes locked on the lens. Then, audio. Her voice. He left me here. Said he'd come back. But I watched the door close, and I knew he wouldn't. Vin collapsed to his knees. He had come back. Hadn't he? The memory cracked. Something didn't add up. She was gone before he ever returned, or so he thought. But the video had a date. It was after. After he claimed she vanished. He didn't forget. He rewrote it. Something clicked. Not in the laptop. In his mind. A truth he'd sealed off. Not a moment, but a decision. He had seen her that night. She begged him to wait. But he'd been afraid. Afraid the cops would ask questions. Afraid of what she'd done. He left. Told himself he hadn't. Let grief do the editing. Let guilt become amnesia. He looked at the screen. It didn't accuse him anymore. It understood. The folder updated. Revelation, atonement. One final file blinked. Ready? He didn't move. Outside, the world was silent. Inside, the house exhaled. The walls flexed slightly, like lungs. Cursor blinked, waiting. Not for another secret, but for a choice. Stay in the story he wrote, or face the one he tried to erase. The screen stayed still. No more typing. No movement. Just the word, ready, and a blinking cursor like a held breath. Vin hovered over the keyboard, paralyzed. The house no longer pulsed. It listened. Like it was giving him the floor, giving him the chance to finally say what he never had. His fingers moved. Slowly. One letter. Then another. He typed, yes. The moment the word appeared, the laptop powered down. Darkness. Then the walls peeled back, not physically, but perceptually. He was no longer in the bedroom. He stood in a digital liminal space, endless black, with pulsing strings of red code hanging from above like veins. A voice, not mechanical, not human, spoke without sound. Welcome to Revelation. Vin wasn't watching the system anymore. He was inside it. Not virtually. Spiritually. Psychologically. This wasn't a program. It was a mirror. And it wanted to be honest. Before him, the strands of code formed walls, then corridors, then doors. They didn't open with keys. They opened with truths. As Vin walked forward, each door bloomed with a scene from his life. The first, his childhood bedroom. Laughter, echoing. His sister chasing him with a toy. He reached for the door. It disintegrated into ash. The next, a hospital corridor. Empty. Pie. Cold. He never visited her there. Couldn't face what she'd become. Another door. Courtroom. Andy. A case he hacked to erase a man's conviction, only to find out the man was guilty. Door after door. Not memories. Judgments. This wasn't a maze. It was a trial. And every step deeper wasn't to escape. It was to account. Why show me this? He whispered. The system responded without words. It wanted him to remember. All of it. Without the lies. At the end of the corridor stood one final door. Unlike the others, it was closed tight. No code, no flicker, just solid, matte black. Vin reached out. The moment his fingers touched the surface, it shuddered, then opened on its own. Inside was a space that didn't match the rest. A replica of the police interrogation room from the file he'd seen. His sister sat at the table, not the video version. Her. And. Alive. Don't. I'll arrive. Breathing. But her eyes didn't meet his. This isn't real, he muttered. She looked up slowly. Neither were your memories. Her voice wasn't angry. It was broken. You didn't forget me. You chose to let me disappear. Vin backed away. The room darkened. You always knew where I was. You told yourself a softer story. He collapsed into the chair across from her. Because deep down he knew. This wasn't a simulation. It was a confession booth. And it was finally his turn. She placed a file on the table. Not digital paper. Real. Whale. Tangible. He opened it. Inside were police reports, transcripts, surveillance logs. It was all there. His denial made manifest. Proof that he had known. Letters from the institution. Missed calls. He hadn't been blind. He'd ignored. Why show me this now? He asked. Because you're ready, she said. And because I can't leave until you are. He looked up. You're not really her. She smiled softly. No. But you built me from truth. She faded, not violently, not cruelly. Just gone. He stood alone again. The room fell away. One last file blinked into view. She was never missing. He stared at the words. They pulsed once. Then deleted themselves. The message had been sent. Not to him. Through him. Revelation was never a server. It was a ritual. A way to release truth the world was too scared to hold. Back in his apartment. Or maybe a copy of it. He wasn't sure. The screen blinked once, then went dark. All files gone. Flash drive melted. Router unplugged. It was over, but the silence felt final, not safe. Vin moved to the window. Morning light bled through, unreal and weightless. The world still turned. People walked by, unaware. He didn't cry. He just stood there, hands at his side. Not lighter. Not freer. Just stripped bare. There was no monster in the code. No hacker behind the signal. Just him. His guilt. His memories. His choices. Revelation didn't reveal a crime. It revealed him. The version he never wanted to see. And now, he could never unsee it. Somewhere far beyond circuits and firewalls, something ancient closed its eyes. It had been fed. And it had moved on. But Vin. He was still here. Awake now. And unbearably, fully known. Vin sat motionless for hours. No screens. No input. No voices. Just the echo of what he now knew. But truth doesn't stay buried. It reshapes everything it touches. And now, it wanted more. His phone buzzed. For real, this time. A private message from an unknown number. Was she worth it? Attached, a new video. No name. Just coordinates. He clicked. A live feed. A woman sitting in a small room. Alive. But breathing. Older. Her face. The same, but changed. It was her. Not a memory. Not a ghost. His sister. The stream glitched, then resumed. On-screen text appeared. One confession left. Say it loud. Vin stared at the camera. No keyboard. No prompt. Just his voice. He didn't know who was listening, human or otherwise. But he knew what it wanted. Not data. Not proof. A spoken reckoning. And it had to be real. His voice cracked on the first word. Then again, on the second. Truth has weight, and it doesn't come off easily. He stared into the camera, unsure who was on the other side, but knowing they were already inside him. I knew she didn't run away, he said. I let myself believe that because I didn't know how to fix her. His voice strengthened. I thought if I buried it deep enough, it would hurt less. That the world would forget with me. The stream lagged, then caught up. His sister turned slightly toward the lens, just a fraction. I was scared. But that's no excuse. She needed me, and I left her alone. I made her disappear because I didn't want to carry her pain. I wanted to delete it. No glitches now. The feed was perfectly still. Listening. He kept talking, not knowing what was being recorded, or if it mattered. She was hurting, he said, and I didn't ask why. I just walked away. I told myself it wasn't my fault, that I wasn't responsible, but I knew. He paused. There were no tears now. Just a hollowed voice. And after they took her, after she was gone, I let them convince me she was just unstable. A footnote. A name on a file. But she was more than that. On the screen, her image blinked slowly, then leaned closer, gently, not urgently. Vin whispered, "You were more." The lights in his apartment dimmed, not from power loss, but from something deeper. The walls seemed to lean in, listening. Confession wasn't a performance. It was a key. And something inside the system had been waiting for this. Then the feed went black. No static. No warning. Just gone. Vin sat frozen, his voice still hanging in the air like smoke. The laptop screen remained dark until a new line appeared. Truth received. The file dissolved. No backup. No copy. Nothing left to parse. And yet, the air felt cleaner. Not forgiving. Not even lighter. But honest. He stood slowly. The room was the same. But he wasn't. He walked to the window. No movement. Just morning. He turned back expecting something to chase him. Nothing did. He was alone. Entirely. Revelation hadn't punished him. It hadn't rewarded him either. It had simply shown him what was real, and asked him to carry it. That was the cost. Not pain. Not shame. Knowing. And once known, it could never be unknown again. Vin walked to the door and opened it. Just the hallway. Just silence. No cryptic files. No digital hauntings. The world had moved on. Revelation hadn't burned everything down. It had simply ended. But endings aren't peace, they're transition. He stepped into the hall, unsure of what to do next. But that was the point. Revelation had no instructions. Only exposure. He reached into his jacket pocket and found a photograph he didn't remember putting there. It was old. Torn, faded. A picture of them as kids. He smiled, not because it was warm, but because it hurt. The kind of hurt that makes space for something real. The final line of code echoed in his head. There is no forgiveness here. Only clarity. That was enough. Maybe for now. Maybe forever. Vin walked without direction. No plan. Just motion. The city felt the same, but he didn't. The noise was back. Traffic, footsteps, the everyday chaos of lives not interrupted by haunted servers or digital confessions. He stood at a crosswalk and waited, even though there were no cars. Habit. Structure. He reached into his pocket again, checking the photo. Still there. Still real. He had no idea who had placed it, or if it had always been his. Across the street, a woman passed who looked like her. Not exactly, but enough to stop his breath. She didn't look at him. Didn't pause. Just kept walking. Like everyone else. Like nothing had happened. And maybe nothing had to them. Revelation wasn't an explosion. It was a whisper. And it had whispered only to him. He stopped at a diner. Not for food. For time. For something normal. He sat in the corner booth, ordered coffee, and stared out the window like memory might form in the condensation. No laptop. No headphones. Just silence. When the waitress asked if he was waiting for someone, he almost said her name. Instead, he said, "No, just waiting." She smiled, not unkindly. "Aren't we all?" He sipped the coffee. Bitter. Perfect. Oh. In the reflection, the empty booth across from him looked occupied for just a second. Like a trick of the light, or maybe something deeper. He didn't look away. Didn't question it. Let it be. Some ghosts don't want to haunt. They just want to be remembered. And memory is a kind of peace. Not enough to heal, but enough to endure. Later that day he found himself back where it started. The old apartment, still locked, still untouched. But he had the key. He stood at the threshold for a long time, unsure if entering again would open another door he couldn't close. Finally, he turned the lock. Inside everything was exactly as he left it. Cables on the floor. Screen dark. Dendry. The air still heavy with unspoken things. He didn't move to the desk. Didn't touch the laptop. Instead, he sat on the floor beside it. Not in defeat. In understanding. He didn't need to open it again. Revelation didn't demand more. It had taken what it came for, what he owed. Now, it waited for the next name, the next truth. But for now, it let him rest. A week passed. Then another. Vin didn't speak about it. Not to friends. Not online. Not to himself. Dials never returned. The system never called back. And yet, every time he touched a screen, he half expected it to open a door again. But it didn't. And that was its final cruelty. Silence. No confirmation. No purpose. Just the memory of something seen. He started working again. Smaller jobs. Safer ones. But he couldn't touch code the same way. Every string looked like it might unravel into a secret. Every server might speak. And every blinking cursor now felt like a question. Are you sure? He typed slower. Deliberate. As if every command might open something sacred. Or something waiting. One night, long after midnight, he found something in his inbox. No subject. No sender. Just an attachment. A text file named echo.txt. He didn't open it. He didn't delete it either. He just stared at it. Sometimes truth doesn't demand to be read again. It just needs to be there. A reminder. A wait. A warning. He closed the lid, locked it, walked outside into the quiet street. Above him, the sky was blank. No stars, no clouds, just soft black. The kind of sky that feels close. Watching. He took a breath, held it, let it out. The world didn't answer. And that, too, was an answer. Revelation was over. But the echoes were his to carry. Not forever. Just long enough to remember what silence costs when you fill it with lies. Vin didn't expect to dream anymore. Not after Revelation. But that night he did. Or maybe it wasn't a dream. In it he stood at the threshold of a door that didn't exist in any building. It had no handle. No frame. Just a thin divide in light. On the other side was his sister, young again, laughing. She wasn't speaking, but he knew what she was saying. The words they never got to share. The ones he buried. He didn't cry. Just listened. The laughter faded, and the door began to close. He didn't rush to stop it. He let it shut. Slowly. Finally. When he woke, the photo was gone from his pocket. No wind. No theft. Just gone. Like it had been returned to where it came from. Or to whom. Dreams don't usually take things. Unless they were always theirs to begin with. He woke before sunrise. The kind of hour that doesn't belong to the world yet. Just him, and breath, and the faint thrum of memory. He sat on the edge of his bed, hands clasped, staring at nothing in particular. He'd spent so long running from what he knew, he almost forgot what it was like to live with it. And now, it was inside him. Quiet. Permanent. Like scar tissue. The room was still. Peaceful, almost. But peace wasn't comfort. It was acceptance. The idea that some things will never be right. But that doesn't mean they don't matter. He stood, moved to his desk, and opened his journal. Not to explain. Just to record. The first line he wrote. There was no revelation. Only reflection. It wasn't profound. But it was honest. And that at last was enough. That afternoon, he returned to the train station. No destination. Just movement. Watching others go somewhere. The platform was full, yet quiet in that way only transit stations manage. Everyone lost in their own bubble of purpose. Vin stood near the edge, staring down the tracks, letting the hum vibrate through his chest. He wasn't thinking about code. Or memory. Or even her. Just stillness. He watched people board, watched them leave, watched the empty stretch of track reappear. And then he saw it. Not a message. Not a ghost. A man, mid-40s, hoodie, mirrored posture, watching him from the other platform. Their eyes met. Not recognition. Just mutual weight. What? A nod passed between them. Not greeting. Not farewell. Just understanding. Revelation wasn't over. It had moved on. Vin didn't chase him. Didn't need to. Revelation never left a trail. It left echoes. That night he walked the city with new eyes. Not afraid. Not paranoid. Just aware. Every alley, every screen, every locked door now looked different. Not ominous. Just honest. The world was full of stories like his. Buried. Fractured. Waiting. Not for someone to save them, but for someone to say them. To bring them into light, even if it burned. And maybe that was the real virus. The idea that silence was safer. He paused in front of an internet cafe. A teenager inside typed furiously, headphones on, eyes locked on code. The screen flickered. Just for a second. Vin smiled. Not out of comfort, but recognition. He turned and walked away. Some truths don't belong to you, but you feel them anyway. Back home, Vin stood in the center of the room. Everything looked normal, which made it feel unreal. The laptop was still closed. The air was still quiet. No more files. No more folders. No more voices asking him to confess. But he still felt it. In his chest. In his bones. In the part of him that knew silence could lie. And truth could survive anything but being hidden. He spoke out loud, not to anyone. Not even to her. Just to the room. To the ghost of what had happened. To the thing that revelation had shown him. I didn't lose her, he said. I gave her away. Then silence. A real one. Not haunted. Not expectant. Just silence. The kind you earn. Not by winning, but by finally saying what should have been said a long time ago.